Just jumped on as well.
There
Let's
we go.
go.
Good
How you
afternoon.
doing, Seth?
How are you, sir?
I am blessed. Thank you. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. It's Friday and we're on Friday flow. Life is good.
Let's go. I love that. First of all, Seth, before introducing you, I want to say sorry. I was mentioning that you are a financial advisor, but that is not the case. So we're just going to clarify that right off the bat. So if I'm not mistaken, financial expert and a crypto wealth coach. Is that correct if I say it like that?
I'm a professional investor and a business founder. Financial advisors are licensed to sell commodities and they get paid on commissions. They're also legally bound to give you certain answers based on their training. Guys like that can't legally tell you to go buy Bitcoin. Is the reason why I bring that out. They're actually legally prevented from giving that kind of risky financial advice. So when you talk to a financial advisor, you're going to get certain answers that are inside of a specific box that
Yeah.
they tell you, and nothing against them. That's just the reality of the situation.
So I love that. So thank you for clarifying that, and my apologies once again for that. Uh, so before jumping into all of that, so as we just mentioned, Seth is a phenomenal man when it comes to the experience of finance as well as crypto, Bitcoin, and all that. We're going to jump into it in a few seconds. And let me just introduce myself for your community. My name is Christopher Dedeyan. I am a professional speaker and a peak performance business and life coach, specializing for CEOs to go to that next level. So my brother, my first question that I want to ask you right off the bat, are you in any way, shape, or form related to Sebastian Maniscalco? And I'm sure I'm not the first person to ask you that, but when I saw the name, I'm like, I have to ask it.
It's a very common question. I usually tell everyone he's the funny Maniscalco and I'm the rich Maniscalco. Not Sebastian's doing too bad himself, but no, there's no blood relation there, but certainly help the name recognition out.
It definitely does, and he's doing quite well. So, like I said, my mind went towards there. So, thank you for clarifying that.
And
So,
I love Sebastian because I'm actually Sicilian. Obviously, Maniscalco's Italian heritage. My wife's Italian, and some of those stories really hit home for us. There's a lot of true stories going on there. He's an outstanding comedian.
really, I agree with you, especially when he talks about like the different immigrant backgrounds and all that stuff. And being from essentially from Sicily, I'm guessing you're born and raised in the States. Do you speak Italian or
I do not know.
no?
My family came over in like 1897, so we've been here for a while. I consider
Yeah.
myself, but we've got stories.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, Seth, let's jump into it. Talk to us a bit about crypto and what's happening with the world on that end. And I have so many questions in regards to what's happening, especially with, I don't know if you know, but Biden just recently signed something in regards to making crypto centralized. But before going into that, talk to us a bit about, for the people who don't know what crypto is, the blockchain, what's linked up. Give us some knowledge about the base level of what we need to know about crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Crypto is exciting for the simple fact that it's the first time in all of modern human civilization, the last 10,000 years, that we have had any system that is independent of control.
Mhm.
The decentralized nature eliminates control. Bitcoin was invented and created back in 2008 at the end of our last financial crisis, which wasn't that long ago. And here
Mhm.
we are finding ourselves in this again. So that's why Bitcoin is shining. The governments are going to continue to be focused on control and making sure that that they collect their taxes, which is really what the control is all about, making sure they get their piece of your pie that you worked for and took risk for. And Bitcoin solves that problem because there is no centralized control. When we use the dollars, you go to your bank account and you punch your numbers in and you take your money out at the ATM, all of that money is basically, in an Excel spreadsheet, and it's ones and zeros sitting in a bank account somewhere, right? Somebody says how much money is in your account. If you have a problem with your bank account, say it gets locked down, or you enter in your password too many times improperly and they lock your account, you got to get on a phone call and say, I need help. Somebody help me get access back to my money. And there's pros and cons that come with that, right? The pro is that somebody has protection of your money and you don't have any real responsibility to protect it, because you can call the credit card company and say, I spent $1,000 on this course and it was a bad course. This guy didn't deliver. Give me my money back. If you use Bitcoin, you can't do that. There's no protections in that regard. So if I send you one Bitcoin and make a purchase and you decide to, shut the lights off and disappear, there's nobody that I'm going to be able to call. So they call it a trustless economy. However, the reality is you and I need to have a whole lot of trust before I'm going to interact with you and complete a deal. So, there's pros and cons on both sides, and there's fascinating arguments for both of that. But at the end of the day, the government keeps printing more and more money, and they're devaluing your dollar. So no matter how much money you have, they're basically, doing highway robbery in broad daylight.
So a lot of points over there that I want to unpack and just mention. And the last one was the hyperinflation aspect of when we have money and it's getting printed, the value of that dollar diminishes, right? And if you just look through money throughout time, no fiat currency has ever lasted. If you look at the Roman Empire, if you look at the Chinese Empire, if you look at the Ottoman Empire, every single currency has demolished the currencies that are fiat. So fiat currency means it's a currency that's not backed by a tangible good. Now, back in the day, a US dollar was backed by a dollar, and then it went down to fractions until, if I'm not mistaken, Nixon in the 50s completely took that out. Now, that created...
Nixon was in the 70s.
But it was Nixon, right?
It was Nixon, yes.
So 70s, sorry, yes. Okay, so in the 70s when Nixon demolished that, everybody accepted, which is still, I don't understand how the world governments accepted that. Anyways, that's a whole other subject. Now, what I find interesting in crypto is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Seth, is that crypto, you could only mine a certain amount. So it's finite. So you cannot overproduce crypto. So the value of crypto, if we're talking, sorry, I'm saying crypto, but I was talking about Bitcoin in this regards, but there is still a certain control on the aspect that it cannot be overproduced. So there is going to be a value going up, and there's a certain structure that kind of keeps it valued. Is that correct? And what can you speak to that?
It is. And what you're talking about basically at the end of the day is the software encryption and coding that is in the Bitcoin chain. What determines that maximum supply of 21 million coins. And specifically, you're talking about a proof of work blockchain, POW for short, proof of work. Proof of stake blockchains and other blockchain technologies do not necessarily work that same way. So that answer is very specific to a proof of work blockchain. But yes, for Bitcoin, that answer is yes, 100%.
So do you think that is better to have a currency that is digitalized on the blockchain, not controlled by governments, and on top of that, it is finite, so there won't be hyperinflation? Do you think that's the proper direction to go towards if you look at the history of fiat currency always failing?
100%. And what you're really talking about at the end of the day, if you'll give me a moment to summarize, is an asset class. And the definition of an asset class is something that's scarce and has a demand for, right? And there's I would argue there's 5 asset classes now, with cryptocurrency being the new asset class. The other 4 asset classes would be, owning a business, right? So you've got a business that pays you money and can potentially make you money while you're sleeping. There's the stock market and paper, certificates, notes, etc. There's the commodities market, gold, silver, oil, crude. And then what's the 4th one I'm missing? I'm drawing a blank here for a second. There's the commodities, there's stocks, there's paper, and precious metals. Real estate. Thank you. That was the other one. Real estate.
Yeah.
All of those are what we call asset classes, and asset classes are where you can invest and compound and grow your money and leverage your money to get more money. You can't do that in a bank account, paying you 0.01% interest rate, right? Because the dollar of your value keeps diminishing while they print more and more. There is no hard cap on the dollar. The reason there's no bottom to the dollar is because they keep printing more and more of it. Something like 40% of dollars have been printed in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it's mind-boggling. And the true benefit of blockchain and Bitcoin is that it gets the government out of your money. The government is thing in our money because they continue to devalue it and perform this, proverbial highway theft in broad daylight. And I know I'm a little biased, and I will openly say that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are starting to recognize and realize. I mean, the price of gas has doubled in the last 6 months, right? I mean, the price of your groceries have gone up 50%. The price of everything has pretty much gone up between 10% to over 100% in some scenarios. And that is a direct reflection of the devaluation of our currency, period, end of story. You can blame it on You can blame it on the war, but that's what happens when you print more and more money. You're devaluing it. People don't trust the dollar anymore.
Okay, so this is so interesting. I love this conversation because if we're going towards one direction, it's a hyperinflation. Like at a certain point, it's going to blow up because, like you said, if the dollar has less and less value and the rate of people earning that dollar with their jobs, with their hourly wage is not going up, somewhere there's going to be a problem. And we've had recessions before. Now, I'm not saying that we're necessarily going towards one, but there's a lot of signs telling us towards that. Now, you did mention government, right? And just recently, Biden had signed a document saying that they want to centralize and they want to control crypto. What's your thoughts on it? Do you think they're doing it right now because there's a lot of things going on in the world and people's energy and thoughts, and as well it should be, are directed towards what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now? So do you think they're utilizing this to kind of pass this without necessarily people noticing? What's your ideology within that? Do you think it's actually something that the government will be able to control this crypto world, which is not something that, like you said, the structure of crypto was based off of?
What you're really talking about with governments and digital currencies is what we call central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. So that's where the bank basically issues a digital, or excuse me, the governments issue a digital dollar, or the banks, in this case being the feds, and they issue the dollar. So rather than being, they still have the full control over the dollar. Yes, it's digital, but so is your credit card. I don't have one right in front of me, but your credit card digital. Your bank accounts are digital. We've had digital money since the 1970s. This is a new concept. I know Bitcoin is new and exciting, but this technology has been around for over 50 years. It is not new. PayPal, all these online services, right? So what happens is they're basically creating a software code for the dollar. They're creating a new Bitcoin software code. So what that means is I'm sitting here in front of my laptop. So all they have to do is press on the keyboard and they can create more digital dollars. There's still no hardware cap in that situation. They're going to sell it to you as digital. This is the new way. You're going to be able to transact everything with your phone and life is going to be simple. What they're not going to tell you is we still have full control over your account. If we suspect you've done something malicious, if we don't like that you made a purchase, we can shut your wallet down. That's pure control. So they're yes, it's going to be sold to the American public as the digital dollar. You can trust the dollar, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people will just blindly trust the U.S. government for that reason. They're not going to do their homework on it, and a lot of folks just simply don't care about control. They're going to default to the dollar and not spend more time on it. But that is the true and real risk, and that is a major threat for the freedom of humanity and the sovereignty of you and your money and your ability to control your life.
Yeah, and you know what? It's crazy, but we've kind of seen that happen before, and it is a very scary thought. Just thinking about what happened in Greece after 2008 and all that stuff, how they had to stop and control that, or just recently what happened in Canada, my backyard, with the truckers and the government kind of taking and stopping certain bank accounts of people. So it is something.
Bank bail-ins. That was in 2013 when that happened, not 2008. It was close, but that was a major.
Oh yes, sorry.
And for the Friday Flow listeners who may not be familiar with that, a bank bail-in is the opposite of a bank bailout. A bank bailout is where the governments will write a check and bail the banks out, right? They send you $100 million, here, go fix your problem. A bank bail-in is where the banks shut down on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and when the banks reopen on Monday, you have 50% less of your money in that bank account because they took that money out and they put it in their own ledger. Literally, that is what happened in Greece. They stole 50% of the money from the citizens of Greece to recover their irresponsible money practices. They were spending money that they didn't have. They created a catastrophic bankruptcy in that country, and they stole 50% of everybody's money. That is what a bank bail-in is. And the interesting thing with that is, in particular, how it relates to Bitcoin. Because at that point, Bitcoin was worth about $30 back in 2013, if you can believe that. And that event with Greece and the bank bail-in caused the price of Bitcoin, because now you put fear and panic in the markets, right? All of a sudden, people realize, I can't trust my government. They just stole my money. I need to protect myself. So they went out and bought Bitcoin. And it pushed the price of Bitcoin from $30 to $1,500 in like a 7-day period or something. It was a very short period, and we had another spike. But these kind of events that are what happened, and you again, Canada is an outstanding situation because, a lot of folks will tout Bitcoin as a solution to third world governments like Greece, who will do that. Well, here's a situation we had last month in a first world country where Bitcoin was solving a problem with a malicious government, if you will. This is a real world problem to all governments, not just malicious governments. There's a perfect situation for truckers. And can you imagine, here we are donating money to truckers, and President Trudeau came out and tried to shut down GoFundMe. What? Are you kidding me? I mean, you want to talk about a violation of trust? I don't want to get too far off subject, but Bitcoin solves this problem. And that is where it truly, truly shines, and why, if the governments continue to keep messing around and they keep thinking they're going to put their thumb on people, people are going to find a way around them. And that's, you put people hard enough, they will find a solution. That's human nature.
Yeah, that's a very interesting conversation. And let's shift it towards, obviously, you being a wealth crypto coach. What do you coach about, or how do you get somebody started? If somebody's listening to this and doesn't necessarily know about crypto, but is interested because he's seeing what's happening around the world, he's seeing that potentially, things are going towards this direction. What would you coach them towards? How do you go about teaching somebody to start investing in crypto? And what would be the best one to start investing in?
That's an outstanding question. And if you give me a moment or two to scale that out, actually, crypto is an outstanding investment opportunity, and it's an investment opportunity that is right here and right now. It's technology. Bitcoin was, 2010. If you didn't get into Bitcoin when it was, a couple $100, honestly, you've missed that boat. I think Bitcoin will continue to scale up. However, there are much better opportunities from a technology investment standpoint. Bitcoin is great. Bitcoin works. Bitcoin solves a problem, but it's also, a 12-year-old technology. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes for me to send you a Bitcoin and for the network to clear it. If I want to buy a Lamborghini, if I want to buy a piece of real estate from you for $500,000, I'm sure you'd be happy to take my Bitcoin and you'd be happy to wait 20 minutes for that money to clear, right? Mm-hmm. However, if I'm going to the grocery store and I'm buying $100 worth of groceries and milk and eggs, the little old lady standing behind me in line is not going to want to wait 20 minutes for my Bitcoin to clear, right? So it is secure. It's a $1 trillion. Actually, I think it's about $850 billion right now. We kind of came down underneath it. It's a $1 trillion asset, just to round up. It's not going anywhere. It works. It solves problems. It's got trust. It's going to continue to win and solve problems in the world. But there are better technologies coming out and being released. Ethereum solves a new problem. It has smart contracts. It brings a new technology to the table. It's a whole lot faster than Bitcoin. Ethereum will clear in about 15 seconds. Okay, I can now go to the grocery store with my Ethereum and buy my groceries. You and I can put together a real estate contract. You can set terms A, B, C, and D in order to get that $500,000 for me. The software to determine whether or not I or you met the terms of that contract, that money sits in escrow. And as soon as all those triggers are cleared, that money now moves over to your account. You met your obligations. I met my obligations. Everybody's happy, and the contract is absolved. We move on. That is a new solution that didn't exist in the market before. So Bitcoin is great. I love Bitcoin. If you want to store Bitcoin and accumulate around 200% on average a year, it's a great place to store your money. It's certainly going to do much better for you than keeping it in a bank account paying you 0.01%. The reason I bring this up is because I want to scale out here. And Bitcoin is a temporary investment opportunity. The book Prohibited Profits that I just released in November obviously talks about crypto, but it scales it out, and it's much bigger than just crypto. If you look back in history, there's been several opportunities like this that have presented opportunities for 4-digit ROIs. And that's what I tell my investors to focus on, is if you cannot return a 1,000% or better profit for your investment, you shouldn't bother. Most people are going to tell, most investors will tell you if you can double your money, you should go for it. And generally, that's probably good advice for things like the stock market that perform about 20 to 40% per year. If you double your money in the stock market, that's outstanding. When you're talking about technology investment, getting in early and finding technology that is going to be disruptive is critical. So when you're, again, when you're looking in the cryptocurrency market, there's over 20,000 different cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin is just one. It's been around the longest. It's the king. Fundamentally, it solved a lot of problems, and that's why it's on top. But there's going to be a better project to come along. It's technology, right? Technology is constantly advancing. There was a time when people wouldn't want to sell their horses for cars 100 years ago. I'm going to keep my horse. I can feed my horse. I don't need a car. What do I need that for? What do I need a bank account for? What do I need the internet for? In the 1990s, I don't know, I'm 45 years old, so I grew up in the dot-com boom, and I watched, the Amazons and the Microsofts. A lot of people laughed. Who needs the internet? I don't need the internet. That's ridiculous. Fast forward 30 years later, if you are not on the internet, you're completely irrelevant in today's world, in particular if you're a business owner. If you don't have a website, you don't have a business. And that's how I see the future of this going. Because everybody's talking about Bitcoin here and now, right? Everybody's talking about NFTs in the metaverse. Well, while that's all exciting, if you can scale this out and look 30 years in the future, nobody's going to be talking about Bitcoin. It's not going to be even a conversation. Everybody's going to be using digital money. It's going to be the default. No one asked you, are you on the internet? That's a ridiculous question, right? No, that's silly. No one's going to ask you, are you using crypto in 30 years from now? The metaverse is going to be standardized. So when we're talking about technology investment, you're trying to find companies that are solving problems, and they're going to be disruptors in their markets. So it's a fundamental discussion at that point. Fundamental investments in solid companies that are going to come out and win. This isn't something when you invest in a company, your time horizon needs to be 4 to 10 years in order to get and see 1,000% or better gains. This is a much longer horizon. And crypto is volatile. It's going to go up and down. And if you allow your emotions and this 6 inches between your head to control your decisions, you're not going to win that long game. You have to have a much longer time horizon, and you have to have a smaller risk position in that. You can turn $1,000 into $100,000. You can turn 10, but the idea is not to over leverage. If you need to pay your mortgage with this money, you should not be investing in technology with it. Okay. So again, the idea with prohibitive profits, well, yes, I do own Crypto Wealth Coach. And yes, I do think crypto is an outstanding investment. Well, history does not repeat. Christopher, many times in history, it does rhyme. And if you look back, a lot of these patterns, crypto is an outstanding example because of the government regulation and the fact that government sees it as a threat. Government has done this many times in the past. If we scale back and we look at alcohol prohibition that happened back in the 30s, right? You've got the gangsters in Chicago doing bootlegging and bathtub gin, and the illegal underground market that developed when the government came out and made alcohol illegal. Well, when you make things illegal, you're simply create a black market. People are going to do what they want to do regardless of you. That's why criminals exist. We have thousands of laws on the books, yet criminals still exist. They don't care about your paper laws, okay? That's why they're criminals. They just don't care what you say. But the reality is, when they came back and they discovered, you know what, maybe it's smarter to actually tax the people on alcohol and let them have their alcohol. The folks who were in the right place at the right time and invested in alcohol, like Budweiser and Coors, they have established and built generational wealth for themselves. This is a pattern that repeats. You can look at marijuana. Cannabis was outlawed again in the 30s. There's a moral argument to be made with Black Americans and why they made it illegal. I'm not saying I agree with that in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply saying that it did happen. Okay. Now that we've gotten to a place where that is reversing, and the governments are now collecting billions of dollars of taxes even while we still have many minorities in jail that have been arrested for having small amounts of marijuana, there's companies making billions of dollars out there. It's a travesty from that perspective. However, the pattern has repeated itself again, because if you were able to get into marijuana before the law started to change, maybe you had an illegal operation that has now gone legal, and you can shine the light on this, you're making a lot of money. You're doing well. You've got an asset class in a business making money for you. Gold was outlawed at one time. When we had war, precious metal was actually outlawed and made illegal for Americans to own. They said, turn in all your gold, we're going to melt it. It's now property of the U.S. government. Some people turned it in. Other people said, they gave you the one finger salute and said, no, I'm going to stash this in my basement somewhere safe. They didn't turn it in. And they came out much further ahead when the government reversed that. You can look at psilocybin and magic mushrooms, right? This is a drug. This is a Schedule 1. I think it's a Schedule 1. If you get caught with
narcotics, yeah.
Jail, right? However, we now have seen Colorado legalize it. Oregon has legalized psilocybin. This is a $35 billion industry that I believe is going to turn into a $1 trillion industry. Do the math on this, Christopher. This is exactly what we're talking about. If the psilocybin industry turns into a $1 trillion industry, that is exactly what Bitcoin did 10 years ago, or has done in the past 10 years. So purely from an investment standpoint, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about technology advancements and these patterns that repeat themselves time and time again. Is Bitcoin and digital currency sexy here right now? Or there are opportunities to make 1,000%? Absolutely. And we've been doing this consistency for the last 5 years for my clients. That pattern will continue, I believe, to have the opportunity for investors to see 4-digit gains probably for the next 3 to 5 years. This is a very limited window when you're talking about technology and opportunity, and it comes down to first movers advantage. If you want to make big gains, you've got to get in and take in bigger risk. I'm not telling you to, pay your mortgage or take your mortgage and put that in the market. Take much smaller positions in smart plays, and they have the potential, if you can, get your mind around a longer time horizon, not trying to cash out of the stock market in the next 30 days, you're going to win out much bigger. And these patterns will repeat themselves again, right? Because the next threat everybody likes to talk about, well, what's the threat to Bitcoin? What happens if quantum computers come into play? These $1 million computers, big corporations like Microsoft can build these, multi-million-dollar computers, and they can hack your bank account, right? They can hack crypto and steal your crypto. That's a fear-based argument for one. Yes, it's not an invalid argument. However, there's a whole lot more money sitting in bank accounts than there is in Bitcoin right now. If there's any threat for quantum computers, it's your bank account, because it's the same technology. Anyway, my point is, what's the next technology? If it's going to be quantum computers, you might want to look at a new technology like quantum resistant ledger. QRL is an outstanding new blockchain technology that fixes the threats with Bitcoin that exist from quantum computers. Is it going to be the end all be all? Is it going to be the one that wins in 10 years? I have no idea. But I can tell you, I've taken a small position in quantum resistant ledger, and I have miners mining it. Think about if you were mining Bitcoin 10 years ago and you were getting 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, 10 to 12 years ago. You're a billionaire today.
Yeah, you're positioned properly.
So you need to have a 10-year horizon on what you're investing in. And that's where your question was an outstanding one, and I thank you for asking it. But crypto is simply an investment opportunity for here and now. You're capitalizing, you're taking advantage of an opportunity that's here and now. What I do with my investors is tell them, let's look at the future. Let's get ourselves into positions that nobody else is talking. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin. Well, the opportunities to make money in that are limited. If you were jumping in November when everybody was talking about Bitcoin at $60,000, you've lost half of your money in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Following not the way to go about investing. If your barber is talking about Bitcoin, you've missed the boat, brother. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're going to lose simply because you're coming at it from a losing mindset. You're chasing a trend rather than seeing it before it happens. That's the difference.
Okay, so let me just unpack that a bit, and we're kind of up for time over here.
That was a speech to get to your answer there.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I appreciate it. I like soaked it up, and I'm sure the listeners as well. Uh, so first and foremost, let me just highlight one thing. Main thing he mentioned, which is something that Warren Buffett mentions all the time. When people are investing in something, you don't invest, and when people are like selling, that's when you buy, right? That opposite side. And you gave several examples towards the prohibition era, towards cannabis, towards Bitcoin back in the day, towards now quantum computers, or just the quantum world in itself. And understanding of, you have to get these trends early on and be on the like an early adapter of these trends to get that pop. And towards, if you're investing at the top of the chain, then it's going to be very difficult because these things do suddenly go down as well, and so on. So I love that aspect. Now, Seth, my last question to you is, where can the listeners, viewers reach out to you if they're interested in investing in crypto, getting more knowledge? But what I understand, you're not just in crypto, you're obviously in anything that there is an opportunity to make money digitally. You mentioned quantum computers, which is highly interesting by all means in itself. So where's the best way to communicate with you, and what's your coaching program or approach look like in that regards?
Yeah, so I'm a hedge fund manager and owner. I own Modern Wealth Management. We're a futures commodity hedge fund. We are launching two other crypto hedge funds. One is a private friends and family. The other is going to be an accredited $100 million fund for accredited investors only. So that's where my experience comes from. We've been doing investments for over 20 years now, and it's an opportunity identification. You can find me on social media. My website, sethmaniscalco.com. The book website, of course, prohibitedprofits.com. If you want to find more there, you can sign up. You can find us on Amazon and Kindle. My preference would be come to the website. We will give you a free month of Crypto Wealth Coach. We'll give you some free downloads and extra information that Amazon just simply is not going to give you, okay? And of course, you can find me on my business website, cryptowealthcoach.com.
Awesome. Seth, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for highlighting certain things and just having this conversation to really insight and make people understand what's happening with money, what's happening with inflation, and where the future is going to go, and maybe how to approach it as well. So everything you mentioned will be in the comments down below, so people will be able to reach out to you. Once again, my brother, thank you very much. It was a true pleasure, and keep on doing your amazing work.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you to the audience as well. Everybody have an outstanding weekend. Make some memories.
Have a great one. Ciao, ciao.